Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, back again with the final episode of Good Omens. Because presumably there won't be a second season. Last time on Good Omens we had the Doomsday option. Dad, what happened last time?
Well, the four horsemen, horse persons, whatever they are, horse things, bikers, some of them, met together at Tadfield, although they never called it Tadfield RAF, which I'm assuming, even if it was an American base, it should have been called RAF. But they're awaiting the arrival of the Antichrist, who finally realizes that what he was doing is wrong, and he's set his friends free, even though one was about to smack them with a cricket bat. And Aziraphale as Madame Tracy and Crowley have also appeared.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't think Anathema and Pulsifer got there yet.
They're on their way.
They're on their way, yeah.
At least.
But essentially we are now at the Nexus there in Tadfield, ready to either destroy the world or not. I guess that's what we'll find out.
Yeah. That's pretty much that. This is where we would say no spoilers, but if it's the last episode, there's nothing to spoil. So,
and by the way, I did buy the book. I have read it up to this point. I didn't want to read the end of it because I wanted to see how the video played out first. But I will finish the book, and perhaps the next time we can sit down and discuss the differences between the book and the videos. Yeah,
maybe just a short 10-minute video.
Yeah,
talking about the changes and stuff. Which you will be able to point out. You're gonna have to lead that video because I haven't read the book. So yeah, that is pretty much that. With all that being said, we might as well get into this final episode of Good Omens. Here we go.
Nice place you got here.
Not for you, it won't be.
Could do with some house plants. Maybe a coffee too.
Silence! British approach.
Love to.
Beelzebub is a female?
4 of us.
I mean, you can't be too surprised. He was the only thing holding that thing together.
Rest in peace. You were a good car.
I've felt that way before.
You may need to brandish your weapon, Sergeant. Well, we are here to lick some serious butt.
Don't blame me if your son starts World War III.
You see, I was in my
It's
bookshop.
not right. You should go back to being two separate people again.
Oh, there we go, tingly.
See, this is why you need to bring a backup brick.
We're Adam's real friends. Not you lot.
I feel like it shouldn't have been that easy.
I believe in a clean world.
And I believe in food and a healthy lunch. Actually, it's a very good thing.
Didn't that used to be your sword? I don't believe it was.
So War was given his sword.
I mean, if I actually wanted to improve this computer's performance, all I do is open it up and then click on the Disney front menu.
All over the world,
Just
people
like that.
have been wrestling with switches.
Just wondering, is that the ineffable plan as well?
The inevitable is a great plan, yeah? The ineffable plan is, well, it's ineffable, isn't it? By definition. Can't have it.
But it is written.
God does not play games with the universe.
Where have you been?
You know, I was scared that you'd be hell incarnate.
I hoped you'd be heaven incarnate. But you're not either of those things. You're much better.
I mean, he's already stopped Armageddon.
Incarnate.
It's all about being human.
Adam, reality will listen to you.
Wasn't Benedict Cumberbatch also the Smaug in the Hobbit films?
I guess.
My rebellious son, come here.
It's interesting how different he looks from the other demons.
That's not wait until you're 11 to say hello. You're not my dad. You never were.
This is why you don't hinge your plans on an 11-year-old.
Would anyone here care to explain to me what exactly is going on?
So he probably doesn't have his powers anymore.
It's all worked out for the best, though. Just imagine how awful it might have been if we'd been at all competent.
Point taken. What if the Almighty planned it like this all along? From the very beginning.
Could have. I wouldn't put it past her.
It's kind of a dick move.
It's called Dick Turpin because everywhere it goes, it holds up traffic.
Huh.
Oh, I regret asking.
How do you play tuba in the rain?
Very carefully, but I'm sure.
As far as the British government is concerned,
renegade angels all tied up with string.
These are a few of our favourite things.
Listen to music.
What's wrong, lad?
Ooh, bad luck, dear.
Do you have anything to say before we take our vengeance on you?
Well, they are a democracy.
I'll get this view down in the basement.
So Michael's helping them and that guy's helping them. The picture must be bigger on the inside.
Hester, test it.
Won't that kill him?
Well, we'll probably throw a minor demon in.
Oh, maybe.
So, come in.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
To be honest, we're all very interested in this. Mr. Bychance said he came down himself, but he doesn't travel well these days.
Is it a Back to the Future kind of
I
thing?
have no idea what you're talking about.
The bequest. It's what's in the box, with the letter. My firm has had it for over 300 years.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Here is a Florin lawyer. Now run fast, lest the world find out the truth about you and Mistress Spidden of the Council Town Planning Department.
how many nipples have you got, Jezebel?
Retired, Jezebel, Mr. S. Just the two.
Well, yeah. That's all right, then.
Averted the war.
Well, I think the greater good.
Don't talk to me about the greater good, Sunshine. I'm the Archangel fucking Gabriel. Greater good was we were...
Well, lovely knowing you all. May we meet on a better occasion.
Shut your stupid mouth and die already.
Such a bureaucrat.
I don't suppose that anywhere in the 9 circles of hell there's such a thing as a rubber duck.
Very much Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace. Is that...
They swapped.
Isn't one of us anymore.
I came to bring back the... Oh, Lord.
Michael! Dude, do us a quick miracle, will you? I need a bath towel.
That's quite handy.
Well. I mean, that doesn't mean the prophecies won't come true.
That's true. But
it's just, you're not going to know about it.
I'd have to chase you to catch you, and I'd have to leave the garden. And I'm not allowed to do that. But I'd have to if you went and ran away. Dog, you bad dog! Stop! Come back here!
Circling back to not supposed to leave the garden.
Told him that something was coming to him. Not ever again.
And yes, summer in England is cold enough that you could start a fire and wear a coat and still be comfortable.
Well.
He couldn't see why people made such a fuss about people eating their apples. But life would be a lot less fun if they didn't. And there never was an apple, in Adam's opinion, that wasn't worth the trouble you got into for eating it.
That's a nice moral.
Right. Swap back then.
It was just like Agnes had told them. They were playing with fire and would need to choose their faces wisely. And so they had.
Oh, that's clever.
Carton collar. Really? Cotton is stylish. I made the Archangel Michael miracle me a towel.
And if you weren't, deep down, just enough of a bastard to be worth knowing. Cheers.
At the rest, at the nightingale sign in Berkeley Square.
Okay. And that's that.
Nicely done. Literally every last little thread tied up.
Yeah. Alrighty. That is the end of the show. Presumably. I mean, they did slightly tease the big one at the end there, but you said there's no sequel to the book.
No.
So unless Amazon gets greedy and wants to just make another season, I don't think they will.
Well, of course, although Terry Pratchett has passed away, if I recall correctly in the comments they said he died just 2 or 3 years ago, one of his last requests was for Neil Gaiman to write the screenplay for this. So Gaiman could conceivably come up with a sequel to this, but I mean it would take a year or so to write and then another year or so to get that into production. So if there is a sequel, it's going to be 3-4 years down the line easily.
Right. And it's entirely possible that he just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're right, they did pretty much tie up all loose ends about everything. Just the only thing they left open was that, well, they're not going to leave the two of them alone forever. And eventually, Crowley was saying, eventually it's going to be all of us versus them. Humanity taking on both heaven and hell at the same time. So, which, that is an interesting concept. You know, before you can even get to your war, you have to deal with the humans because they're too stubborn to just get caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, that's literally the basis of every science fiction novel of the last 100 years, is that humanity always finds a way to survive.
I mean, yeah, and when he was saying it's like, you know, all of humanity versus the forces of heaven and hell, and, you know, okay, as a little behind the scenes, we're filming this on the 4th of July, so when he said that, I just thought of the movie Independence Day, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, that'll be interesting. We'll get Bill Pullman in as the president again. We'll face them. So yeah.
But just once again, I want to say extremely well written.
Yeah.
Not just the screenplay, because the screenplay does in fact follow the book very carefully. I will say the one thing I really prefer in the screenplay rather than the book is in the book there are much longer sequences of each individual thing, like anathema, getting to Tadfield and so forth. Whereas in the screenplay, they break it up into smaller scenes, and that way you don't forget what's gone on, 2 or 3 episodes before, because each episode now contains a bit of each of the 4 or 5 different storylines. Makes it much easier to follow. So, very, very pleased with the screenplay.
Yeah. And it does also work that it's 6 episodes. It's not too short because, if they tried to make this into a movie, that's going to be really hard to cram all that into just 2 hours.
Yeah.
And most of these episodes are about 50 minutes apart.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, we've discussed this a long time ago. That's like the movie of Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Funny movie. I really enjoyed the movie, but it had to leave out so much of that book. So, yes, I'm very glad that this was done as a miniseries and not just as a 2 or even 3 hour movie.
I mean, movie adaptations of books, I almost feel like that's sort of going out of style. Like, people are like, well, especially with the rise of, these streaming services, Netflix can do that with Unfortunate Events. Amazon's done it here. HBO has done Game of Thrones pretty good. I
have not seen Game of Thrones. So.
It gets a little iffy towards the end, but that's beside the point. But yeah, so the fact that they can throw in so much budget to these shows to make them look so great, you can get away with just taking an entire season just to do one book.
Yeah.
Whereas, before it's like, okay, and granted, the only real book to movie adaptations I've seen were Harry Potter. And those are pretty decent. I'm sure they leave some stuff out. I don't know. I stopped at book 2 when I was in 7th grade. But I remember. But they're solid films altogether, and I'm sure they're really good at adapting. But that's about it. And other than that, I guess the only other thing I can think of, even though I haven't seen it, would be the Lord of the Rings movies. But the thing is, that's 3 hours long, and even with The Hobbit, it's like, well, The Hobbit is one book, but we split it up into 3 really long movies.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's great, but you could just do a TV show, which they're actually doing. Amazon is going to be making a Lord of the Rings TV show. Not as a remake. It's going to be like a prequel or something. So, yeah. But yeah, it definitely seems like if you're going to do a book adaptation, it's probably a better bet to go with television, because you can make sure everything works there.
Yeah. And again, the quality of the actors in this. I mean, again, even in the smaller roles, getting Miranda Richardson and Michael McCain to do Witchfinder Shadwell and Lady Tracy. I mean, that's brilliant. It's just very interesting interpretations of those characters, and a very, very sweet ending.
Yeah.
And love the question. I suppose it's time for me to put the question, how many nipples do you have, Jezebel? I mean, it's just hysterically funny.
Yeah.
And just very well done by the actors. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. I guess in terms of like the demons, they're all really good. They all seem to be just sort of like, there's not a whole lot to them. It's like, all right, they're demons, they're mad, especially they're mad about Crowley and stuff. But I feel like, throughout this episode, when you have to show the two sides are angry at Aziraphale and Crowley, I feel like Heaven was done maybe a little bit better with how angry they were. Now, granted, most of the angels we've seen throughout this show have been pissed off this entire time. Michael's been pissed off.
Yeah.
The rest of them have been pissed off. And it's only now in this episode that Gabriel, he broke. And he's just done. And it was perfect because he's so he's so angry and he's so done, but you can see he's trying to keep it under that smile.
I believe the Bible calls that righteous indignation. You know, you have screwed up my plans. You know, how dare you? You know, this is what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I love that question, and they've been peppering that word throughout. I mean, literally from like episode 2. Yes, this may be the great plan or the grand plan, whatever they call it, but is it the ineffable plan? Is this exact? I mean, even you as Gabriel or you as Michael cannot know what God's ineffable plan was. And so you can be angry all you want.
Yeah.
But obviously somebody wanted this to happen this way because this is God's will. I mean, that's a very bizarre interpretation of the Bible, but I mean, that's the very root of it. You cannot understand what God actually wants.
Yeah, it's like after all of it was done and they were sitting it was at night, and Aziraphale was just like, do you think this is what God's plan was all along, for it to all go down this way? And I was just like, that's just not... You didn't inform anyone about that. Like, you didn't inform anyone that this was going to be the plan. You just sort of left it up to Aziraphale to let the plan go into motion. But
well, I may have even said it before in one of the earlier episodes, but you know, having taught about world religions and things like that, I'm always looking for interesting details that the average person would not necessarily know. And many, many years ago, I ran across an old Jewish proverb. It's not in the Bible, but it is a saying of the ancient Hebrew people that basically says, if I could understand God, I would be God.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what this has done. We, as human beings, and they as the angels and demons, literally have no idea what God is actually thinking, because that is so far beyond our capability to understand that, you know, and that's the perfect way to wrap this up, is to say, you know, how do you know this wasn't the plan all along?
Yeah. Well, and also because God never shows up. Like, God's the narrator of this, but God never shows up at all. Like, I was kind of thinking, like, okay, maybe God will save Aziraphale and Crowley, and it's like, no, it was just reliant on the two of them saving each other.
Well, we had mentioned that before, that we thought we would be very disappointed if it came down to a Deus Ex Machina, that, you know, God comes down and says, all right, everybody stop this, you know, all go your separate ways. So I'm glad that Francis McDormand, again, was just the voice and just kind of sat back and said, this is what's happening, and we'll just allow it to go on, and you all can watch and make your own judgments.
Yeah.
That was very well done.
Right. Let's see. So we started off technically with the trial, and then it was like, you know, how did this happen? And we went all the way back to Tadfield. I thought it was a little strange how they beat the Horsemen, that it was just the friends believing just against what the Horsemen were. And so, you know, Pepper believing in peace and not war, so war went away. And believing in a clean world, so pollution goes away. And believing in a good lunch, so famine goes away. But they couldn't get rid of Death, because he's just too different from them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we've always pointed out throughout the show. Death, just looking at him, he's so different, because it's like, yes, he's one of the four horsemen. He's not really on a side. It's like, all right, Death.
Yeah.
Let's go do that.
Well, the other three, as I believe someone mentioned in the comments, are all human constructs. You know, war is a human construct, as is famine or pestilence. But death is inevitable. You know, the only two things, as Benjamin Franklin said, that are inevitable are death and taxes. So everybody dies. So they couldn't get rid of him. They only postponed him. You know, he went away to come back. And I will tell you, there was the only, strangely enough, disappointing thing about that episode is that we didn't actually get to see Benedict Cumberbatch. You know, that he would pop down out of the gigantic, you know, satanic demonic form, and then just show up and go, what's going on here? You know,
that I mean, that was interesting, because with all the demons we've seen, you know, at first we did see, you know, Crowley with his serpent form, and then he changed into his more humanoid form. But all of them have been humanoid demons. You know, there's just something weird about them. Beelzebub has a bunch of flies. Hastur has some sort of lizard on his head. But then they sort of went with, I guess, just a typical Satan look.
Yeah.
You know, got the wings. He's huge and stuff like that. And then that was just that. Whereas, yeah, I thought, okay, he's going to come up, and then he is going to go down, and it's going to be Benedict Cumberbatch in a nice suit or something.
Yeah.
But they didn't go with
fun.
that.
But it's fine. Again, I'll have to read the book to see if there was a specific reason they did that.
Yeah. Well, also because he was only there for a minute, and then Adam just got rid of him because with the help of Aziraphale and Crowley just saying, like, you know, you are in control of reality, so if he's in reality, you can get rid of him. And it almost seems like, you know, he's changed reality, he's also changed time to where that is his adopted father is his actual father now.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Friends, the two plans. It's like, yeah, is this actually the plan? You don't know. The reboot of reality, like I said, was interesting. Even fixing up the car and the bookshop and even adding some more books in there.
Makes you wonder why he took a cab, though, rather than getting back into the Bentley. Did you catch that? Because when he saw the Bentley, but then the cab drove up and he got into the cab instead.
Yeah.
He later said there wasn't a scratch on the Bentley. But
right. I mean, I guess he was... Maybe he didn't want them to take it. Because, I mean, he was... I don't know. Or maybe it's just that, well, he already called the cab, so he might as well take it. So, yeah, that was a bit interesting. It's like, well, is that not his? And it's like, no, it is his. He said that it's his. It's not. There's not a scratch.
Aziraphale went back to his shop.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to make... It would have made sense if Crowley had gotten into his car to drive off to see Aziraphale.
Yeah.
Minor thing.
I wrote down associate. So they did mention that, and we saw there that Michael was actually giving the demons holy water just temporarily so that they could execute Crowley, and then Michael was going to come take it back. And then we saw that one of the demons actually went into heaven to, you know, get the hellfire to execute Aziraphale. That does sort of lead into the whole thing that Crowley said. It's going to be all of humanity versus heaven and hell, because if they're already associating just here for the execution of their own people, then yeah, it almost seems, it just seems odd. It's like, even if you're going to try to execute or, you know, punish your people, you are associating with your enemies. Just a ceasefire. I guess it's the enemy of my enemy, because Crowley and Aziraphale were both now enemies of heaven and hell. So I thought that was interesting.
That was somewhat reminiscent. There's a film that I doubt you've seen yet. Came out in the early 70s about an actual World War II figure, General George Patton. And there's a wonderful scene at the end where the United States actually teams up with the Soviet Union. The United States and the communists team up to beat the Nazis. And after they've done that, they're at a ceremony, and they're expecting, you know, Patton to toast the Soviet general or something like that. And he turns to his interpreter and says something to the effect of, "Be sure you interpret my words exactly as I say it." And the interpreter says, "Sure." So he lifts up his glass and he looks at the Soviet general and literally calls him a son of a bitch.
No.
And then when the interpreter, goes all glassy-eyed, he goes, "Tell him exactly what I said." And the Soviet listens to it, and you get one of those very long pauses, and he turns back around to Patton and essentially says, "Well, you're a son of a bitch too." And Patton says, "Well, I guess it takes a couple of son of a bitches to beat somebody like Hitler." I mean, that was the gist of the scene. And that's what we're seeing here, is that heaven and hell begin to realize, maybe not that they are so far apart, but that in order to bring about the end of humanity, they may actually have to, to get along briefly because now they're finding there's an even bigger enemy, and that's humanity, who's going to gum up the works by not doing what they think the great plan is.
Yeah, in order to get to their war, it's like, okay, we're going to destroy you, but we have this really bad problem. The humans have gotten out of control, and they're being helped by an angel and a demon, and we have to just set aside our differences. We will kill each other later. We got to destroy them first. So... and then I did think it was clever, actually having Crowley and Aziraphale switch so that neither of them would actually die. Because I was wondering, it's like, okay, so is Crowley, now that he's, fought against Hell, is he now good? Well, that doesn't really make sense. And it's like, okay, now that Aziraphale has fought against Heaven, is he now a demon? I was like, well, that didn't make any sense either. And then when they were sitting on the bench, it did seem like their personality switched, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense, and I'm not sure I like that. And it's like, oh, they actually switched bodies, basically. So that was interesting. It was also interesting that technically Aziraphale's body now, you could argue, is demonic because it was created by Adam. Because he split Aziraphale and Madame Tracy, so he must have created a brand new body for Aziraphale, but I guess it would just be exactly... I mean, I guess if he can completely rewrite reality, he can actually make an angelic body.
Yeah.
So, that'd be interesting.
That never even occurred to me.
Yeah. And then, last thing I wrote down was, I guess, Crowley's prophecy of the big one is coming, where all of humanity is going to have to unite against both heaven and hell. Yeah. So, which, that is sort of the thing, is that, I was kind of, while we were watching this episode, I was like, this isn't the kind of show that would have a big battle at the end. Like, it's like, okay, I was kind of thinking, it's like, well, this isn't the kind of show where it's like, okay, Aziraphale does have his flaming sword, but is he going to fight Gabriel or Michael, or is Crowley going to face death, or is he going to face the devil? Is Adam going to have to fight? And then Crowley says, like, yeah, I don't think fighting him's going to do anything right now, which does show I guess Satan's power, that even with all the power that Adam has, he wouldn't be able to fight him. So
well, I kind of thought that the ending, again, going back to literally every science fiction story of the last 100 years, it comes down to we have a tendency to think that ultimately the world will unite against the bad people, just like we did against the Nazis or someone before that. But in some of the science fiction, you also begin to realize that there are also people who are so intent on imposing good on the world that we must do this because it is for, as Gabriel keeps saying, for the greater good.
Yeah.
But that is the imposition of someone else's will, whether it's the eugenics that were started in the late 1800s and were picked up by the Nazis, and Star Trek did that thing with Khan about we all need to be the superior intellect and the great bodies and everything. Or Orwell's 1984, where Big Brother says this is the way everything must be done. The fact is, human beings are not all alike.
Yeah.
We here in the United States, especially on 4th of July, talk about all men are created equal. That's not exactly true. What that line actually means is, under the law, under what will later become the Constitution of the United States, we are all equal under the law. Yeah. But it is very obvious that we are not actually all equal. I am not an athlete. I can't dunk a basketball. I can't throw a tight spiral pass football. I probably couldn't hit a fastball if my life depended on it. Right. But on the other hand, I know basketball players and baseball players and football players who couldn't act or stand up in front of a class and teach. You know, and I can't repair a computer, but my brother who could repair computers couldn't have gotten up on stage without, literally just soiling himself. And that's
right. We all have our strengths. I couldn't be an engineer or anything. I'm not as bad as Newton, in terms of if you give me an instruction book, I'd probably figure it out. But I can't do any of that. But I can get on a camera and make a bunch of people laugh over nonsense.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing. We aren't all equal, and I think once everyone, and it'll probably take another 6,000 years of human history before we come to the realization that you just have to accept that we're not all the same, and that we never will be. And that's probably the strength of the human race, is that we are adaptable. You know, no matter what you throw at us, whether it's the bubonic plague of the 1300s, or it's a global catastrophe like World War II, or anything, we have somehow managed to survive that and keep going.
Yeah. If there is any problem, there's someone on this planet that can fix it.
Yeah.
And with every single problem, there's always someone. And everyone can fix some sort of problem, even if it's just the smallest little problem. Someone out there can fix it.
I think there's it's a horrible little aphorism that says, not everyone can do everything, but everybody can do something. And that's basically what you just said. We all have our own strengths. We all have the things that we can do to keep this little planet, whirling around the sun for another 6,000 or more years.
Yeah.
Well, that was way too philosophical.
That's what happens.
But I think that's the moral of this story.
And the other moral of the story is, don't hinge the fate of the world on an 11-year-old. Because that was Hell's biggest problem, is you put this all on an 11-year-old, and then it all went to hell.
But, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, I taught 6th grade, which was basically 11-year-olds, for 17 years. I enjoy that age. They are still, learning and still wanting to learn, still growing. So that's another reason why I really, really enjoyed this, because Adam really does come to realize that, he doesn't know everything, but he can do what he can do.
He's a great character. Yeah. Because normally, in a lot of... and there's a whole lot of media where it's like, you bring in a kid and it's like, okay, whatever, let's get back to our main characters. But, which, that is the thing, is that I was thinking, the first 2 episodes, and I guess, especially the first half of episode 3, they were very focused on Crowley and Aziraphale, but as we kept going, they sort of took a bit of a backseat, because they weren't the only ones that were doing this. We went and focused on Adam, or the Horseman for a little bit, or Anathema and Pulsifer. So it was interesting, and pretty much every character, when we would go to them, they all held up, basically, even Adam. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
I think that's enough.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So yeah, we may come back for just a short 10-minute video to give your thoughts on the book, or we might wait a year, see if I read the book, and then we'll talk about it. But I don't know. We'll see. If that happens, it'll pop up in your sub box. If YouTube works, it may not. YouTube's weird now. But yeah, if that's it, then that's that. I guess that means you get a break from reaction videos again.
Well, I still have curriculum. I've been working literally every day this summer on my curriculum, getting it updated. So starting over again in August.
Yeah. Well, you'll be back for Doctor Who when that goes crazy. So yeah. That's pretty much that. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to rewatch our entire Good Omens reactions, you can click on the playlist. You can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.